Welcome to Nomad Media, Automotive Tales, where we tell vehicle stories, a little bit of history, and some unique and personal experiences. Let's get right into it. Welcome back, and today we have Mark Schneider once again, and this time we've got his 1973 Plymouth Cuda. Man, this thing, I saw it at the World of Wheels, and obviously I saw it the last time I was here, but you know, the World of Wheels is a big one. I know you got some stories here, and I can't wait to hear them. Like, this thing is cool, just like the other one, and thanks for taking the time to talk to me again. So obviously I didn't bite you too hard on the first one, and you didn't really dislike me after the first video or anything like that. So
I'm having a blast doing this. I'm be happy to talk to you about all the cars. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in again.
Yeah, so
Appreciate
go ahead.
very
Let's get it kicked off here then.
Okay.
Man. Like, let's get into these stories, because
Yeah.
I know this one's got some history on it as well.
Yeah, it does have a lot of history, and I've owned this one quite a while too, since 2016. So let me tell you a little bit how that happened. So in the other car that we talked about last time in episode 38, so here, and I'll refer to that as the episode 38 car.
It'll be in the description below. Go check it out. Like, it's great as well.
So I owned that vehicle for about 18 years prior to buying this one. And, you know, that was a learning process, as I mentioned in that episode. You know, I felt pretty strongly that I wanted to get into the hobby, but I was a little tentative, which is part of the reason why I bought a car that was in a little rougher condition that time. But I came to learn in the ensuing years that it's really expensive to do that way, because, you know, once I was like, yeah, I'm really into this hobby, a couple things happened. Is I really wanted to restore that car, which I knew was going to be expensive. And I guess if there's one lesson to learn in this hobby, unless you're going to do the work yourself, it's much cheaper in the long run to buy a car that's already done, like this one, as opposed to one needing a lot of work. So, but I was in love with that car, and I wanted to restore, and I was getting the itch to do it. But I was really desiring to have one right away, because I'm impatient that it was already restored. And I knew I'd be without that episode 38 car for quite a while, and it turned out the restoration took much longer than I could have anticipated.
And just so it's out there, that's a Dodge Super B, because he just keeps saying episode 38.
Well,
Dodge
I know, like
Super B, you know, like, so you like the B bodies? Go check it out.
Yeah, well, I know you like to stay focused on the car, and I won't talk about that one much
Well, that
longer.
one's out there, so you're good on it.
But yeah, well, so when you live in Pennsylvania, as I did at the time, it's a very short season to begin with. And the other issue with having an antique car, like the Super B, is they tend to break down if you're not a mechanic, like I'm not. And that happens even early in the season. For whatever reason, it takes forever to get these things built. Everyone says, oh, these cars are so easy to work on. But then my experience has been, you know, you take it in when it breaks down, and you wait like 3 months. And
you have to have some idea of what you're doing for it to be easy to work on. So
Yeah.
it's like if you've never touched on the mechanical aspects of a V8 engine or something along them lines, man, that's like learning another language.
True, and I know that, you know, parts availability can be an issue too. So I think that accounts for a portion of the problem, but not entirely. And you know, I've found a mechanic down here that I've taken my car to several times, and you wait for him as well. So it's not a criticism per se; it's just the reality. And so, you know, I got kind of tired of that happening over that 18-year period where something would break down and I'd pretty much lose a season. So I thought, well, if I have two cars, then I'm always going to have something to drive if something breaks. So that was sort of the other consideration. So So I was getting the itch and I was starting to look a little bit. And, I have always liked the Cuda, and that was kind of at the top of my list, I'd say, of cars I was interested in getting. And so I had a friend over one evening, and she was a Mopar fan as well. She had like a
She sounds like a great lady.
yeah, she was a good friend, especially at that time period. And she had like an '09 Charger, so it was like a modern era Charger. And she liked Cudas and stuff too. So I found out that she kind of tricked me. So
I may run you off on a tangent here for just a second.
okay,
So she was a Charger, modern charging era. Like, just to date this a little bit, the new Charger just got released.
I know, I saw that today.
What do you think on it? Just a real brief, real quick intro.
Well, I didn't spend much
excerpt.
time. I saw something on Facebook, and I guess there's the EV version, but then I guess there is like a V6, and it was kind of saying, these is going to make the Dodge, people upset, but it has more power than this, that, and the other thing.
Let's keep it high level. What do you think of this looks? How do you think it looks?
Well, it kind of looks like a spaceship to me. I mean, one of the attractions to me about the modern Mopars, up until 2024, I guess I'm defining as modern Mopars, is that they did sort of have the retro look to them. And, that's why I got the Hellcat. And there's another car I probably shouldn't be talking about that we'll interview about someday.
So as long as I don't bite him too hard here, third episode coming. It's not a part 2 or 3. It's going to be a third episode. So stay tuned for
and
that.
that car under there. So.
Oh yeah, he's got something else back here too. A whole nother car in the same location. Yeah. He just, every time I see him, he's got something different.
Well, I do have a finite number of cars, but you can never really have too many cars. So.
Yeah. Well, anyway, sorry to
no,
derail
that's fine.
You there,
and I think I said 24 a moment ago. I really meant 23. When the Hemi, the last year of the Hemi. So that's when I got the Hellcat, the 23.
Yep.
But yeah, these 24s, they kind of look like, I don't know, UFOs or something to me. I didn't study them too hard, but.
Yep. So sorry, I didn't mean to run you off there.
I may have to break down someday and buy one because there might not be anything else to buy. But I think I'll just keep buying older cars.
Stick with these right now.
Yeah.
I got a good thing I'll tell you about after this too. With that too. So
I have a 2010 SRT8, and that's kind of my daily driver. And I've already kind of said to myself, I'm just going to keep that thing running as long as possible. And if I need to rebuild the engine or whatever,
I think that's pretty good.
But we'll see.
So your friend though, she was talking to you about.
So she had it kind of on the. It's been a while since I've been on Craigslist, been many years, but so she had this. It was a plum crazy Cuda that was like in pieces on the left hand side, and this car on the right side. And she was pointing me to the left, saying, "Oh, I was thinking of getting this for myself," and blah blah blah. And my eyes drew to the right side of the screen. I'm like, "What's that?" And I looked, and it was a local car, like within like 20 miles of where I lived, basically on the way to work. And, the pictures were just gorgeous. I mean, this is just a gorgeous car. And I've always loved Petty Blue, being a Richard Petty fan growing up. And the strobe stripe is stunning on it. And I was like, wow, that's a local car. And the price was on it. And it was a big number, but it wasn't like a shocking number. I knew it was worth that probably.
Yeah.
And so I was immediately like in La La Land, and we were going somewhere in the evening or something, and I started making phone calls about financing, and I hadn't even looked at the car yet. So I think I looked at it. I think it was like on a Saturday, and then like Monday on the way home from work, I had made arrangements to go see the car. And I looked at it, and this guy had owned the car for quite a while. I'd say like 20 years. He had it restored. And my sort of take on the situation is he had like a good job at one time, and his wife was like some IT executive at a financial institution in the area. So she had like this big job, but he had been unemployed, got laid off for a while. And I think, reading between the lines, he probably said, "You need to get rid of that car because you're not bringing anything into the family." So he loved this car, and he's like, "I got to get rid of this car." And I think his wife was pressuring him.
Well, he definitely like. So you haven't done anything to this though, like in terms of restoration.
No,
So,
it was a rotisserie restored. I mean, it's
so
gorgeous.
other
If you look underneath it, it's like
other
blue and
than
everything.
taking care of it like you have, then this is how you kind of bought it then. And I
Yeah.
mean, like saying that right there with that assumption, I'm like, the dude took really good care of this car, man. Like, because it is
Oh, it was
very,
like it's
very clean.
beautiful. And so I looked at the car and he's like, "Well, this is the price. It's firm. This is how much I have into it," which is a staggering. I know from restoring the Super B that
Right.
you're going to put a lot of money in. So he wasn't obviously looking to recoup all that investment because nobody would be willing to pay that anyway.
Well, over 20 years too. Like, you got a lot of use out of it. So,
I don't know that he
sir,
drove it that. I mean, I don't know. I can't say that for sure.
well, that's where I'd fault him, not you.
But but he had gone to the nth degree on this car. I mean, he had the build sheet. It's a numbers matching car.
Which we'll get into that too, because you have a little story with that one as well, actually.
Yeah, I do, as far as the repairs too. But he did like a lot of different things. Like he wrote, this car was from Tennessee originally, and I didn't know you could do this. So I looked at his records. He wrote Tennessee a letter and said, "Can you give me all the information on this car?" And I have a stack of, and the letter from Tennessee said, "Okay, we've given you all the ownership records attached. We've had to obliterate the names for privacy reasons." And so it had all these different titles and stuff attached. And so he like traced all that. He got a copy of the original Windows sticker
That's cool.
and all that. And he just very meticulously restored this car. And I'll send you some pictures. But like, for example, the VIN plate underneath the hood, I guess this might be known to your viewers. It wasn't known to me, but I guess you can actually send that out somewhere and they'll create like a replica of that. So he gave me in a bag the original VIN plate and the replica, which is beautiful, like brand new. Is under
VIN
the hood.
plate or fender tag?
Fender tag, excuse
Fender
me.
tags. I'm thinking VIN
Fender
plate,
tag.
you can't recreate those, but the fender tags you can. So,
Fender tags.
yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. And there's like a sticker on the inside of the door with has like the VIN number on stuff like that. So he gave me in a bag that little sticker, and
That's
then it's
cool.
got a nice shiny sticker. So I mean, he did like all of that, and so the car was just beautiful. And I'm like, oh, I gotta have this. So I gave him, and he even said on the Craigslist, "This price is firm." And he wasn't going to budge. And he's like, I've had a couple people look at it and they're trying to lowball me. It's like, no, forget it. And then some other people were interested, but they were nitpicking some things on the car that weren't original. Like there's some non-original seats in here that have this
piping.
blue piping around it that's not original. And he said some of the Mopar nuts were like nitpicking. He was like, well, fine, don't buy the car then. I don't care.
Yeah.
So none of that really bothered me.
I think we touched on that last time where I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't like the nitpick on them. Like, because I was asking you about
Yeah.
is the Super B considered a nuts and bolt restoration, original, or what is it? I think I asked you on that on the Super B, and I'm like, the piping looks good. Like, it
Yeah.
ties in. So I'm like, what's the big deal here? Like,
Yeah.
because when it comes down to it, in my opinion, this is personal opinion, and I am trying to offend everybody who cares that much. Like, these original seats are not comfortable. So it's like, why do you care? Like,
Yeah. I like them. I mean,
they're not
if I had
the
my
worst.
choice, I'd probably would want the original ones, but I'm not going to run out and buy them either.
they're not the worst seats ever. So don't take me wrong here, but it's like, they're not comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then he put like a 70 steering wheel on because it's like a really cool steering wheel, but I have the original steering wheel. So he gave me like everything, all the documents. I mean, he had every receipt. And he gave me a bunch of pictures of the rotisserie restore and all the receipts for everything he put on, from exhaust system to everything. I mean, he just gave me everything. And so that was April of 2016. I think I actually closed on it early May. So I had my second car, and so at that point I was starting to think about, okay, it's time to show that episode 38 car some love. Now that I got something else to drive. And so a couple months after I bought the car, I took it to the Carlisle Chrysler Nationals, which we also talked about in episode 38, what Carlisle is.
which, just to touch on that a second, Carlisle's is a big national
Yeah.
Mopar show up in Pennsylvania, Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Center part of the state.
Very nice show. A bunch of Mopars. Very nice. Best of the best shows up there, and a very big show. If you ever got to find something like this one-off part or these
Yeah.
rare parts or something, you can probably find it at Carlisle.
Yeah.
So, not to go back into that, but just wanted to kind of touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah, but they're going to rewatch episode 38 anyway to get all that background.
Y'all should. Y'all should. Y'all should, but I don't trust y'all like that. So I'm going to give you at least a little bit.
So I got this car in May, and Carlisle's always the middle part of July. So I took it to Carlisle, and I got second place in my class, the first of 4 second places.
So correct me if I'm wrong here. What did don't correct me. Just tell me. The Super Bee, what did you win in it at Carlisle? Was it?
I got third place.
Third
And I've only
place.
taken it one time because for a period of time, it was prior to restoration, I wasn't comfortable putting on the car show, even though you don't.
Well, I only ask you that because I still maintain that third place at Carlisle's is a big deal with your,
Yeah, I was
with your
pleased.
Super Bee. Second place, and I would. This is once again another personal opinion. I feel like Cudas are probably more abundant than Super Bees.
I don't know. I think there was more Super B. There's typically more Super Bs than Cudas.
Okay, well that's interesting then, because I would have thought the abundance would have been on the Cudas.
At Carlisle, at least. I mean, that may not be representative of.
But you still got
The
second
universe.
place, so I'm still like, that's an amazing
It was-
accomplishment there. Like,
There's-
second place.
And I don't really keep track of the names of the other because they announce the names of the winners. But most times there's this other Cuda there that's really, really stunning. I mean, this is stunning too, but it's like the coolest color of green, and it's a stock green. It's not sublime, but it is much lighter, and then it has like a subtle, even lighter like stripe on it. I think I'm remembering that correctly, and it's a stunning car, and I wouldn't be surprised if the years that car is there, which are probably most, if not all, of the ones I've been there, I would not be surprised if that was the one that won first place. But just two stunning cars. So I was very pleased. I mean, that was the first time I had taken a car on the show field because the Super B wasn't restored yet, and I've only taken that car once, and I got the third place. But so it was my first experience, because I know that's kind of a big deal at Carlisle, and so I was quite pleased to get second place. So that was 2016. So then 2017, I started to do some pre-restoration work on the episode 38 car. I had new seat covers put on. The springs in the seats were collapsed. Not this car, the other one. So I had that work done, and I had the car wiring harness. I was having a lot of electrical issues, and I had a guy that was a friend of the same lady that found this car. He supposedly was able to do the wire harness, and it took months, and he botched it. So it didn't work out. So I didn't have the Super B during that time. It wasn't running, obviously, with none of the wiring in, but I eventually had to have that car sent out and rewired somewhere else. So it was probably all of 2017. I didn't really have the Super B, but I had this one. In January or February of 2018, I had the Super B rewired, and it went to go be restored. And that's probably the last I say about the Super B, because as you know from the previous episode, that took about 4 years to complete. But so I'm like, okay, everything's good. I've got this car to drive, and so I took it to Carlisle again in 2018. And I got second place the second time. Oh, and I skipped a story about the first time I took it to Carlisle. That was the year that Richard Petty and Dale Inman were there signing autographs. And I've always been a Richard Petty fan, and I love the Petty blue. And so there was a long autograph line. I was like, oh, I'd love for him to sign my car. But I didn't have the nerve to ask him. I mean, he actually ended up signing autographs much longer than he was scheduled to. But in retrospect, when I got him to to sign a few things. I should have said, if I brought my car down here, would you sign it? It's petty blue. And he might have said yes, but I just didn't feel right about doing that. But anyway, I was like, oh, I'd love for him to sign my car. And then it kind of dawned on me, like I saw some people in line that had like car parts. And I'm like, I bet you I could take the air cleaner off this car and it would be almost like he signed my car, right? Because it would be, so he signed it and Dale Emmons signed it. And I was just looking at the photo the other day to send you.
Yep.
And over time, the Richard Petty autograph's almost completely gone now. And I've been saying recently to people that he must have signed in a thinner pen. And there, you know, there's a, I don't know what it is, like a heat shield or whatever. It's kind of like, almost like,
it's aluminum foil type thing.
I don't know, it's more like
metal?
cloth, but something in between, almost like insulation.
Okay.
And I think it rubs on the
even on the roof.
on the hood, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I think that's what's rubbed off the signature, but you know, it hasn't done anything to Dale Inman's signature, and so I've said, oh, you know, he must have signed in a thinner pen. But when I look at the original pictures, they're equally thick. So I think that stuff is just more on the Richard Petty signature, and it must not be touching on the Dale Inman signature. Because Dale Inman was Richard Petty's longtime crew chief, for those that might not know who he is. But
I definitely don't know.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea who that one is. I know who Richard Petty is, though.
Yeah, so I took it to Carlisle, got this second place again, the second time, and so that was good. So I had this to run around in, the, you know, Super Bs, getting restored. So then fast forward to 2019, I'm going to Carlisle in July of 2019, and we're kind of convoying with some other people, and I was kind of like opening this car up or whatever, and I have to admit that I blew the engine on the Pennsylvania Turnpike between Pittsburgh, where I lived at the time, and Carlisle. And so I was broken down.
Lead foot syndrome. Lead foot syndrome.
Well, you know, I'm no mechanic, like I said, but it was later revealed to me that the engine, there was something about the way the engine was rebuilt initially by the previous owner that wasn't done right. And it was kind of like a time bomb. And I guess I was just getting on it enough that it detonated. And so that was a long Carlisle weekend, because, I had to call AAA, and they took the car. And so I called the guy that was restoring my Super B, Sean Leisure, and was like, oh my God. He's like, where are you at? You here? And I'm like, no, I'm like halfway there. And so I'm like, he's like, okay, just have it sent to my shop. And so I sent it to his house. He was over at Carlisle with his stunning Plymouth Roadrunner. I didn't really know who else to send it to, so why not send it to the guy that's restoring the Super B, right? So, and of course, he was good friends with engine builder Bruce Toth, who your viewers might know. He writes an article in Chrysler Power magazine every month, and he's kind of like well-known engine builder for Mopars.
You were mentioning that this is a numbers matching car, though. Like,
yeah.
So you blew the engine. So what happened there?
Yeah, so that was in July, and so they rebuilt it. They saved the block.
Okay.
So the numbers matching block is still there, but everything in it was garbage. Like, they were showing me pictures. It was all like black and stuff.
Oh, goodness.
And I mean, it's something about like it was internally something and it should have been externally, or vice versa. I don't know, but it wasn't built right by the previous engine builder. So Bruce Toth put some of his signature aluminum heads on it, and they stroked it. So the 340 became a stroked 416, and it's a beast, man. It hums.
So now when you put your foot on it, does it still go boom, or is it like more of a roar now?
It's a roar. I mean, it kind of idles. Those stroked engines are kind of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I guess it's a longer stroke or whatever. So it has a certain kind of sound to it related to that.
Sounds mean. I can't wait to hear this thing idle.
Yeah. So that was July of 2019. So the Super B is then getting restored. This is out of commission for God only knows how long. So, what does a crazy Mopar guy do that has two cars now that aren't running? He goes out and buys a third, which is the one under this cover.
We will be back for that one too. So just stay tuned.
So I thought, well, if you've got to having two cars doesn't always ensure you're going to have one running, then maybe three will. And so far, that's proved to be pretty true.
So there's your sweet spot, guys. If you're ever wondering what you need to convince, like, just go and put it on your list right now before you hit that midlife crisis time in your life or whatever you want to call it. Go on and be prepared to convince the wife or the lovely lady in your life, I got to have 3 classics.
So far, that's been a pretty good number.
That's the sweet number. That's the sweet spot. 3.
Yep. So fortunately, I got this car back. I mean, you don't build an engine overnight, but it wasn't like unreasonable either. So, Sean pulled the engine out of his shop, sent it to Toth to rebuild. And it was back in the car, and the car was back to me in February of 2020. So that was probably about 7 months that it took to rebuild the engine. So again, lost another season, or most of a season. So that stunk. And it was totally unplanned for. But, the restoration was taking a while, and it did help space out the cash flow because I then had to pay for the engine rebuild, which was not expected.
Yeah,
So,
that probably wasn't a fun bill to explain either. Like, oh man, stuff happens, but it's never fun when stuff happens.
yeah, of course, it has to be the big stuff.
I
Right?
haven't mentioned it yet, but I actually have some stuff happen too, like on my car right now. So on my car.
Oh, on
So,
your car?
Yeah. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay. Okay, yeah, let's taste.
Now
Lord knows I'm bouncing around talking about all kinds of different vehicles.
Now
we can't
everybody's
talk about yours now, too.
No. Can't talk about mine. Everybody's got to wait for the next part on my car. So everybody's going to be now like, what happened to his car? Or what does he have?
So that takes us to basically Carlisle 2020, and if everybody remembers what 2020 was, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
The year the world stopped making sense.
yeah, so I know your viewers are probably from around the country and probably decent concentration here in the South, but I can just tell you, Pennsylvania was pretty locked down during the pandemic, and the governor at the time, Governor Wolf, was not allowing gatherings of more than a certain number of people, like 20 or something, and that might not be. And so the Carlisle events people said, tough luck, and they fought Governor Wolf and won. And so I don't know if they were the only group to win that fight or whatever, but it just shows the clout that the Carlisle events
At the very
had.
least, they got some patriots up there in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. So, hey, good on you.
So Carlisle went on as planned. So they never stopped having the show that year. I mean, because, some people were concerned and, whatever. It was not quite as big as it usually is, but I would say it was probably 3/4 of normal. And so I brought this car and I won second place again. So detect a pattern here. So
2-2-2. So, hey,
2-2-3, yeah. So
if I was a betting man,
yeah. Also,
pretty good hand to have, right?
exactly. Also, early in 2020 is when I took the job here, and then I started living in 2 cities. So in the 2021 time frame, I brought this car here to Alabama. It was my first antique that I brought down here.
So let's hold off right there with that thought. And we're actually going to put the Alabama section story of this car in part 2. So stay tuned for that. I know everybody's going to love this because you don't get to hear the full story this week. You'll have to
It's a teaser.
You'll have to wait a little bit. Sorry. But we're going to get into hearing this 416 absolutely roar because you told me this thing's got some blop blop.
It's a beast.
So I'm like, I can't wait to hear it. But we're going to get into that right now.
All right.
And there you have it, guys. Mark Schneider and his 1973 Plymouth Cuda. I about said Dodge Cuda. Like,
That's all right.
But and
I love them all.
I get that stride every now and then where it's like, oh yeah, this is a Plymouth, but it's a Dodge. It is a Chrysler. But anyways, though, man, dude, this thing is cool. Like, I hate that we didn't get to talk about it the first time, but everybody got to see it. They got to see the tail lights and when we did your walk around and things. But man, this thing is cool. I would have never guessed this was going to have such a tail to go with it for the Automotive Tales.
Yeah.
Like Carlisle's second place
Three times.
3 times. You're overdue for a first place.
Yeah.
It's coming up, and I know you go to Carlisle often, so I'm sure it'll be there again. You're gonna get that first place someday there. Like,
Well, it did go one more time, but that's since the car's been in Alabama. But you have to stay for you have to watch the next episode on this car for that.
yes, stick around for part 2, guys. But Mark, is there anything you'd like to tell everybody that may be watching, other than stick around for part 2?
Yeah, stick around for part 2, and there's more cars to show if Brian lets me do that.
No, definitely not.
But no, this has been a really fun car to have. I had a lot of fun with it in Pennsylvania before I brought it down here. The stories are continuing. His lesson is really just, for me at least, not being a mechanic. It's, if you're going to be in this hobby, that it's really good to have more than one car, because they do break down, these old cars, and they do take a while to fix. So that's been nice. I think if you're able to afford it, buying one that's already done like this one is, in the long run, more economical. So that's definitely a lesson I learned in the hobby along the way. But other than that, I'm just looking forward to telling more about the story here in Alabama in the next episode, part 2 of this. So thank you for your attention. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, part 2, man. Thank you for having me again, dude. I greatly appreciate it. I love your stories.
I'm having a blast. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
man.
viewers.
And with that, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Peace out.
See you at the next car show.
There you have it, guys. Be sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.